know you were mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it is great to be on a crowded court. I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot. And also, like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it.
The tennis world has finally found its next great rivalry, and nobody saw it coming from a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines. It was February 19th, 2026, center court in Dubai, a WTA 1000 quarterfinal, and the electricity in that stadium wasn't just in the lights, it was in the air, in the crowd, in every single breath of the 11,000 fans packed into that arena, chanting one name over and over again: Alexandra Eala, Alexandra Eala. On the other side of the net stood Coco Gauff, world number 4. Two-time Grand Slam champion, one of the most talented players to ever pick up a racket, a player who has dominated opponents half a decade older than her, a player who does not lose to wildcards, first-timers, or girls still learning their way around the WTA Tour. And yet, just 3 weeks later, those same two women met again. Indian Wells, the most beautiful tennis venue on the planet, the garden of the WTA, and this time, the script got flipped in the most stunning way imaginable. This isn't just a story about two tennis matches. This is the story of a torch being carried across generations, continents, and cultures. This is the story of what happens when a girl from Southeast Asia dares to go toe-to-toe with the heir to Serena Williams' throne and refuses to blink. This is the epic battle for the future of tennis, and it has only just begun. Stay with us, because what happened between Alexandra Eala and Coco Gauff over these last few weeks will leave you absolutely speechless. Let's talk about Alexandra Eala, because if you don't know this name yet, you are already behind. Born on May 23, 2005 in Quezon City, Philippines, a country where basketball is religion, a country where tennis has been an afterthought until now, until her. Eala began her career on the ITF circuit, grinding through junior events, earning calluses on her hands and flights on budget airlines. Nobody handed her anything. She trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain, thousands of miles from her family, sacrificing everything for a dream that most people in her country didn't even know was possible. And then came 2022. Eala won the girls' singles title at the US Open Juniors, the first Filipino ever to win a junior Grand Slam title. The Philippines erupted, but the WTA Tour? That was a different animal. The main tour doesn't care about junior credentials. It doesn't care where you're from. You have to earn it, point by point, match by match. Eala spent 2 more years scrapping, qualifying rounds, ITF events, ranking in the 140s, dreams deferred but never destroyed. Then March 2025 hit like a thunderbolt. As a wild card at the Miami Open, ranked number 140 in the world, Alexandra Eala did something nobody predicted. She beat Jelena Ostapenko, then Madison Keys. And you have to stop and absorb this. She beat world number 2 Iga Świątek in straight sets at a WTA 1000 event. The Philippines didn't just erupt, it imploded with joy. My dreams have truly come alive. It's such a privilege to look back at this year. Alexandra Eala, she became the first Filipino ever to reach the top 100, then the top 50. Then by February 2026, she was ranked number 31, a career high with wins over Paolini, Keys, Świątek, and Cirstea to her name. The little girl from Quezon City was now walking through the front door of the world's most elite tennis club, and everywhere she goes, an ocean of fans follows. Filipino communities in Dubai, in Indian Wells, in Miami, they come out in numbers that fill stadiums, that create wall-to-wall noise, that turn every arena into something that feels like a home court for a player who technically doesn't have one. Eala has done something remarkable. She hasn't just become a tennis player. she has become a movement. She has brought an entire nation, an entire demographic into a sport that barely knew they existed. And then she walked onto center court in Dubai and met Coco Gauff. And that's where our story gets complicated. Let's be clear about something. This is not a story about villains. Coco Gauff, two-time Grand Slam champion, world number 4, the most celebrated young American athlete in tennis, did nothing wrong. Coco Gauff showed up. She played her best tennis. And she won convincingly. The attack in this story isn't from Gauff, it's from the scoreboard. And sometimes the scoreboard is the cruelest critic of all. February 19th, Dubai. Center court is packed. Filipino flags everywhere, the chants building before the first ball is even struck. Alexandra Eala, the girl who had just beaten Jasmine Paolini, a top 10 player, 2 rounds earlier, walks out looking ready for battle, and then nothing. Gauff broke serve in the opening game. Won the first set 6-0, won the first 10 games of the match before Eala even put 2 consecutive games together. The final score 6-0, 6-2 in just 67 minutes. Eala finished with 33 unforced errors. She won 32% of points on her first serve. It was, statistically, one of the most lopsided losses of her career. At the end of the day, there's definitely still a gap in terms of level between me and Coco and other players of her caliber. Alexandra Eala. The pundits pounced. Headlines called it a stark reminder of how far Eala was from the elite level. Analysts tore apart her serve, the weakest weapon in her arsenal. Critics who had been politely silent during her rise suddenly found their voices. Miami was a fluke. The real tour is too much for her. She doesn't belong at this level, and the broader narrative that had been lurking in the shadows began to surface a Filipino girl from a non-traditional tennis nation beating Grand Slam champions. Surely that can't last. Surely the tour will correct itself. Surely the gatekeepers of this sport will put her back in her place. But here's what the critics missed. Here's what the scoreboard couldn't capture. Coco Gauff, the woman who had just beaten her into submission, had been watching Eala all week, had been paying attention, and in her post-match interview, she said something that changed the entire frame of the story. Something that revealed she understood what was really happening in that stadium, on that tour, in that sport. And what she said next made the entire tennis world stop and listen. Coco Gauff didn't need to say anything. She had just won 6-0, 6-2. She could have taken a bow and walked off. But that's not who Coco Gauff is. Standing on center court in Dubai, microphone in hand, she looked out at a crowd that had been chanting for her opponent all night. And instead of deflecting or brushing past it, she leaned in. Whenever you guys were cheering for Alex, I was pretending it was my name. I think that helped me a lot. If you can't beat them, you've got to join them. Coco Gauff. The crowd laughed, then cheered. Then something remarkable happened. The energy in that stadium, all of it built for Eala, somehow transferred to a moment of pure, joyful solidarity between 2 young women who play on the same tour, breathe the same competitive air. And understand something that critics on the outside never will. Gauff wasn't done. She looked into the camera and addressed Eala's fan base directly. She thanked Alexandra Eala specifically by name for bringing a new demographic into the sport. She called it great for tennis. She told the fans to keep being enthusiastic, keep rooting for their player. She meant every word. And then Gauff said something that should be quoted in tennis halls of fame for the next 50 years. I'd like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it. I think it's great for the sport. Coco Gauff. The tennis world didn't expect generosity from the winner's podium, but Coco Gauff delivered it anyway. And she wasn't alone. Novak Djokovic, 24-time Grand Slam champion, the greatest male player of all time, had been watching Eala's run at the Australian Open just weeks earlier, where her matches packed standing room-only crowds. When asked about it, Djokovic didn't complain. He celebrated again. It's a good problem to have, to be honest, Djokovic said. Let's just imagine if there's a lack of people coming or that stands are empty. These two titans of tennis, Gauff and Djokovic, were saying the same thing. Alexandra Eala is not a disruption. She is a gift. And on Instagram after the match, Eala posted a message that quoted her fellow WTA player, Sabrina Santamaria, a player with Filipino heritage, and what she wrote stopped scrolling thumbs across the entire Philippines. The story wasn't over, not even close, because the rematch was already being scheduled. Here's where it gets complicated, because in this story, the antagonist isn't a person, it's a pattern. The pattern is this: every time a player from a non-traditional tennis nation breaks through, every time someone like Eala makes the tour sit up and pay attention, the response from parts of the tennis establishment follows a predictable playbook: acknowledge the result, qualify the achievement, explain why it won't last. After Dubai, analysts lined up to dissect Eala's flaws with surgical precision. Her serve was exposed, her fitness wasn't there, she had played too many tournaments, she had ridden the wave of crowd energy as far as it could carry her, and now, against the real elite, the scoreboard showed the truth. Some of the analysis was fair. Some of it was necessary, but some of it crossed a line, the line between honest critique and dismissal dressed up as expertise. The loudest voices weren't asking, how does Eala get better? They were asking, how long until she goes back to being irrelevant? And there's something deeply revealing about that question, because it assumes that the answer to not yet good enough to beat Gauff is therefore not worth our attention, as if development isn't the point. As if journey doesn't matter, as if a 20-year-old ranked 140 in the world just 12 months ago, losing 6-0, 6-2 to a two-time Grand Slam champion means the story is over. Let's dismantle that argument piece by piece. First, Eala beat Jasmine Paolini, a top 10 player and French Open finalist, in that same tournament just days before losing to Gauff. That result didn't disappear when the Gauff scoreline landed. Second, her 3-3 record against top 10 opponents over the last year includes wins. A left arm injury forced the American to retire from the match. It wasn't the dramatic 3-set battle tennis fans had been dreaming about, but it was a signal. The gap, that gap that the pundits had declared unsurmountable was closing, and the only people who weren't surprised, the ones who had been watching all along, in her on-court interview at Indian Wells with the California night sky above her and the desert air still warm, Alexandra Eala didn't gloat. She didn't pump her fist and scream into a camera. She did something that told you everything you need to know about who this person is. She acknowledged International Women's Day. She sent warm wishes to Coco Gauff, hoping for a speedy recovery. And then she spoke about the women who came before her, the players who paved the road she is now running down at full speed. First and foremost, I want to say Happy Women's Day, everybody. I want to thank all the incredible women who have paved the way and who have advocated for themselves and for other women. Alexandra Eala. That is not the statement of someone who plays tennis for rankings points. That is the statement of someone who understands that she is playing for something larger than herself. In a sport that has historically been dominated by players from the United States, Russia, Eastern Europe, and a handful of Western nations, Alexandra Eala represents something seismic. She represents proof that talent does not follow geography, that greatness does not require a birthplace in a traditional tennis country, that a girl from Quezon City, the Philippines, a place where tennis courts are scarce and national tennis heroes were non-existent until recently, can walk onto center court in Dubai and make Coco Gauff work for every single game. and Coco Gauff understood this in her generosity after Dubai, thanking Eala, praising her fan base, calling her impact great for the sport. Gauff demonstrated a maturity that goes far beyond her 21 years. She looked at the packed stadium that had come to cheer for her opponent, and she saw something beautiful. She didn't feel threatened. She felt inspired. That is what the future of tennis looks like. Not one dominant nation, not one dominant style, not one dominant culture. The future of tennis looks like Alexandra Eala and Coco Gauff. The future looks like a stadium in Dubai filled with Filipino flags and American pride, cheering wildly for two young women who understand that their rivalry, their mutual rise, is not a competition to be won by one of them. It is a gift to be shared with all of us. Eala is currently ranked number 31 in the world. She is the highest ranked Filipino player in WTA history. She is 20 years old. She has made the semifinals of Miami, the final of Eastbourne, the quarterfinals of Dubai. She has beaten a world number 2, multiple Grand Slam champions, and grizzled tour veterans who thought her name would fade after the first bright flash. It has not faded. It has only gotten brighter. The head-to-head between Eala and Gauff stands at 1 win apiece. They will meet again, probably at a Grand Slam, probably on a stage even larger than Dubai or Indian Wells. Probably in front of a crowd that will make your eardrums ring for days. And when that day comes, when Alexandra Eala walks out onto that court representing 115 million Filipinos, armed with lessons from every match she's lost, every serve she's reworked, every early morning she chose to get better instead of standing still, the tennis world will not be asking whether she belongs. They'll already know the answer. She's always belonged. She's just getting started. And if you don't believe that, if you still think this story has reached its ceiling, then you haven't been paying attention. And you definitely don't want to miss what happens next. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you want to be here for every chapter of the Alexandra Eala story, because trust us, the best chapters haven't been written yet.